So here's my question. This may be the hardest one I have for you all night. Is that with these issues that aren't really necessarily fundamental gospel issues, but they're supremely important, with so much drift on issues like that, do you think that we can unite and fellowship with anyone who simply affirms the gospel? What if they affirm the gospel, but they deny Genesis, they deny that homosexuality is a sin, and they deny that, they suggest that it's okay to have women preachers? What do you do with somebody like that?
It's not enough just to be together for the gospel. I just think a biblical issue is enough. Sure, I'm not going to restrict fellowship with people who take a different view of eschatology, different view of baptism, mode, maybe a different view of Old Testament covenants. But when people begin to violate Scripture, I'm not talking about different views of Scripture or different interpretations of Scripture, some of them very historic. But when they begin to set the Scripture aside, that's scary. And you get these young guys who even call themselves evangelicals who are caught up in this self-exaltation movement of promoting themselves, and they're the big guru of their movement, developing their own style and their own theology. That is really scary.
Yeah, rock star pastors.
Rock star pastors, yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to cut myself off from them. I love these guys, and they minister to me, and they encourage me, and I try to encourage them. But I have a stewardship of young lives. I'll give you an illustration of this. If I, as an elder of a church, have to give an account to God, Hebrews 13, for this flock, to make sure that I don't send them mixed signals about what is okay and what isn't okay. And so sometimes it's a fine line. You want to be broad and loving and gracious where you can be with people who differ. But someone who tampers with what is clear in Scripture, that's a whole different story. And I just think there are things coming down that now literally are stylistic ways to overturn basics in Scripture. You just can't do that. So I go back to what I said before. The issue for me is, what does the Bible say, and what is a clear interpretation of what it says? For all of those truths, I have to be ready to take my stand. For all of those truths. Not some of them, all of them. And I think that's why things drift the way they drift, because the people who have the ear of these young guys are too restrictive in what it is that they will fight for. Paul gave the whole counsel of God. I think look, if you don't know what your view is on something, then get back in the book until you do know what it teaches, because you're responsible for all of it. And I wish more people would take the Genesis to Revelation responsibility and stand for all that is revealed in Scripture. Obviously, there are things we can't be dogmatic about, but we're not talking about those. We're talking about the things that Scripture clearly teaches.
Well, thank you for being clear and dogmatic on those things.
Well, I want to be clear, and I want to be dogmatic when I have a right to be dogmatic, and I don't ever want to give my opinion. I try never to give my opinion. One of the lines that Ian Murray put in his book, MacArthur rarely refers to himself, and then he says, as no preacher ever should. I love that line. I mean, that is pure English, isn't it?
Yeah.
As no preacher ever should. My dad used to warn me when I was a kid. He said, beware of men who are heroes of all their own stories. You just open the book and teach the book, but all of the book, and truthfully, and you take a stand on all its truths. So, thank you, Phil.
Thank you.